Stay with this development story and bring in our guests, both with deep knowledge of India. Michael Kugelman is director of the Wilson Center's South Asia Institute, joining us from Annapolis. And here in the studio with me, Nirmalya Kumar, professor at the Lee Kong Chian Business School at the Singapore Management University. Nirmalya, let's start with you. This is as big as it gets for India. We're talking about the second richest man in the country and a man very close ties with the Modi government.
Yeah, you can't have a bigger story in business India than this. I mean, it is very big. See, the fact that there is some bribing of government officials going on in India is not news, to tell you the truth. What is news in this case is the fact that the amounts involved are staggering by Indian standards, even $250 million plus. And the fact that there was always a suspicion that electricity rates are somewhat rigged, and this seems to indicate that that may be true. But even more importantly, the fact that the US government justice and the SEC is against them, and generally the US government Justice Department does not move unless they have a pretty watertight case. And the fact that they confiscated the electronic devices and downloaded all the messages is a very big red flag, because what people don't understand about WhatsApp is that even messages that have been deleted can be downloaded later by the authorities. So if they have, let's say, a smoking gun here, then it would be very interesting, because this would put lay to rest several of his ambitions. His ambitions after the Hindenburg to clear up the governance, attract better talent. As he's growing very fast, he needs constantly very good talent, especially not only on the managerial level, but also on the boards of directors for governance improvement. That will be, put at a standstill, because no manager wants to put themselves at legal risk vis-a-vis the US government. Secondly, any international, he's already in trouble in Bangladesh, he's already in trouble in Kenya. So his international plans are definitely going to take a hit.
You talked about the Hindenburg report. I mean, draw a comparison for us here. I mean, that led to a spiraling of Adani shares and bonds. Of course, yes. We saw that happening. This is nothing like that Hindenburg report, right? This is way bigger than that Hindenburg report.
Yeah, because the Hindenburg report, people can say, well, that person has an axe to grind because they are trying to be a short seller and benefit from that. And the Hindenburg, in the end, is a private company that is going after you, right? This is much bigger, because this is, of course, people who have the ability to get access to private correspondence, private WhatsApp messages, private PowerPoint presentations, right? It's much bigger than the Hindenburg. Hindenburg was based on their own analysis, which they did. And, you can put a blanket of suspicion on that. But the US government is a different matter. And I think this is going to be major.
Michael, let's bring you into this conversation. You've been tracking developments in South Asia. How are you looking at this? What are the key takeaways for you here?
Well, as noted before, I mean, these allegations are so significant just because of the scale. I mean, $250 million in bribes raised, allegedly. I mean, that's remarkable. And also, again, as was noted before, it's been nearly 2 years that Adani has been trying to fight off these Hindenburg allegations. It's fairly easy for him to deny or shrug off those allegations, because indeed it was an activist short seller that put them out there. And there have also been some other allegations that have been made against Adani and his activities by media organizations over the last year or two. But again, those are easy to deny. But you just can't walk away from something like this when you have an indictment that's unsealed by the U.S. government. It's really significant. The other thing that I would say is that I would argue that the Adani Group and its subsidiaries, their business has actually been booming over the last year. So I would argue that they've actually done a pretty good job of shaking off the Hindenburg allegations. The Adani Group took over a top Indian cement maker last year. Recently, there were $4 billion worth of green hydrogen investments announced by Adani Green. Adani Green has also signed deals with European energy companies. So things have been happening and business activities have been picking up. But now you've got a body blow here to both Adani's reputation and also to his businesses, because it's going to be very difficult to bounce back, at least in the immediate term, from these allegations, which will hurt even more, given that his businesses have been doing fairly well with their recovery over the last nearly 2 years.
We talk about how this is happening on the cusp of a Trump administration. We know that Modi and Trump have had pretty good relations. Might Trump sway this case in any way?
Right. I mean, yeah, that's the big question. We're going to have to see what the next administration does about this. And what we've already seen just over the last few weeks is that Adani has come out and praised and congratulated Trump for his election victory. And he has announced that he's going to invest $10 billion in energy and infrastructure in the U.S. and create jobs. So for Trump, I would think that he's not going to be inclined to be hard on Adani in that, Adani, like Trump, is the businessman. He's praised Trump. He's pledged to invest in the United States in ways that can create jobs. Those are things that I think President-elect Trump would like to hear. So we'll see what actually happens. But I would think that Trump is someone that will not be inclined to do anything that could hurt Adani or make things worse. And of course, the other big story here, what I would argue is really significant, is the relationship between Adani and Prime Minister Modi. I mean, this is not a relationship that either man speaks about publicly, but it's an open secret. We know that there is a partnership and that the Adani Group's portfolio in recent years has really tracked with the policy priorities of Narendra Modi, and that started with infrastructure some time ago, and more recently it's evolved into a lot of focus on green energy. So how India's government responds to these allegations, or if it responds at all, I think that'll be a really notable thing to watch in the coming hours and days.
Nirmalya, we talk about how the Adani Group's fundraising plans, international ambitions will be impacted. Will it impact India Inc.'s expansion overseas? Will it impact India Inc. in any way?
My gut feel is that the India Inc. will still be spared from the fallout of this, because to tell you the truth, it seems to be specific to one group that is heavily involved in infrastructure. Most Indian groups have some involvement in infrastructure, but that's not their entire story. So my hope also is that it's not a big deal. But having said that, the Indian stock market has been on a complete tear over the last few years, and this may give foreign investors who had already pulled out some money over the last 3 months a little bit more pause about investing in India, worried about the corporate governance and the foreign practices of Indian companies, you see. So it's not helpful to Indian business, because it casts a pall of shadow across the entire Indian business and how business is done in India, especially when such a high-profile name. I would say that Adani is about as high-profile a name as you can get in India. And the body blow over here, I would say that to the previous speaker, is not only the obstruction of justice charge is actually quite serious, because, they are claiming or alleging that when they tried to investigate the Adani Group for this bribery, they deleted messages that could have been useful for the investigator. And generally, often it's not what you did that gets you in trouble, it's how you try to cover it up that gets you into more trouble. So I think this is going to be a pretty serious thing. India Inc., even Modi, I think you will find publicly will at least start distancing himself from Adani, because this is so big that I think that they have no choice but to distance themselves from it.
Interesting that you say this is so big, this is as big as it gets, yet the Indian media has been pretty silent about it. How are you reading into that?
This story only broke, let's say, 5-6 hours ago, right? So the Indian media, you're right. Up to now, Indian media is very good at protecting their own people, especially the billionaires, because the billionaires generally own partially Indian media, and also they have a lot of control over the media. Having said that if this story continues to show legs, the Indian media will have no choice but to start putting it on their site. So it may be until now NDTV has not put it on their website, but at some stage they can't not cover it, right? They will cover it. It's not something they're happy to cover, but they will have no choice to cover it. At some stage, also you have to understand today there is two kinds of media. There's the traditional media that will be more, hesitant to cover it, but already Twitter is full of Adani. You look, #1 trending topic in India today on Twitter is Adani.
Michael, you talked about how, it's not in Trump's interest to do anything about this, to sway the conversation or the case for that matter. But when it comes to Trump's cabinet picks, we had a response from Jaishankar, the foreign minister of India, saying that, what, at this stage, a lot of countries are pretty nervous, but not us, because he's suggesting that relations between the two are very close. How are you looking at that?
Well, I would agree with that. I mean, the picks that President-elect Trump have made to this point, those that focus on foreign affairs and defense and security, they're known for being particularly strong proponents of partnership with India. I mean, there's a lot of that in Washington. There's bipartisan support for partnership with India, whether commercial or strategic. But these folks, whether you're talking about Mike Waltz or Marco Rubio or Tulsi Gabbard, they are known for being especially large proponents of partnership with India. And I think that that will make it more easy to believe that whatever tensions might creep into the relationship, and I think there will be some tensions that creep into the relationship because of Trump's tariff policies, those tensions will be weathered very successfully just because you're going to have people in this administration that want to make sure that the partnership with India works and succeeds at all costs.
Do you see Prime Minister Modi detaching himself from this case, from Gautam Adani himself, so that he can preserve that relationship with the U.S., you think?
Yeah, I would agree with what Dr. Kumar said. I think that it'll be very difficult for Modi not to distance himself from Adani, and that could mean simply him not saying anything to defend Adani. But we'll see what that actually could entail. But Modi wants the relationship with the United States to work. He knows that he has an important, strong chemistry with Trump. Of course, Adani himself is very critical to Modi, not just because of their friendship, but because of his role in the Indian economy. He's so dominant, as we noted before: energy, infrastructure, media, so much. So I think that it'll be tough for Modi to completely move away from Adani, but I think what he could do to split the difference, so to speak, is simply not be out there publicly defending him. I think that's something that would certainly serve Modi's interests. But both Trump and Adani are important men, important figures when it comes to Modi and his policy priorities.
And the processes are there, right? I mean, there is an extradition treaty, so in effect, the U.S. can take action against Adani.
Right, and that, again, we'll have to see what the Trump administration does. I think it's highly unlikely that would happen. I just don't see the Trump administration going there. But again, there's a lot that we don't know. But we've seen the indictment that's been unsealed, but we don't know. We have to see how the legal process plays out and see if things get to a point where there would start to be talk about the possibility of extradition. But I simply don't think that we would get to that point.
And the Foreign Corruption Act is really strong, right?
The Foreign Corruption Act is really strong. It had all the multinationals clean up their act after it was passed, and the reach of that is very strong. You have to remember, Trump controls America, of course, because he's the president. But in America, the system still has some legs beyond just the order of the president as to what to do. And especially the $10 billion investment that Adani was going to make in the US, I think we can put a blanket on that and say that's been put to rest. It's not going to happen. Because, to get investors in America to invest as it is, Adani's shareholding was very restrictive. It was mostly his own companies that were investing in it and some institutions. The retail Indian investor was not very heavily invested in the Adani group. So I think that his ambitions overseas and his ambitions in America are definitely going to take a spanner in the works. There's no doubt about that, And Trump can only do so much because the business community moves based on his self-interest, not based on what the politicians tell them to do, right? So, yeah, for Trump, it may not be a big deal that somebody paid a bribe and got away with it. But for the U.S. investors, especially the heavy institutional investors, for them, corporate governance, bribery, all of these things are strict no-nos in doing any investments.
Nirmalya, is there a right response? How should Gautam Adani respond to this?
I think the best response at the current moment would be to just keep quiet, because I don't think he can make a response which is going to have any credibility at this stage. What can he say except that it's a legal case under legal review? I can't comment on ongoing legal proceedings. Beyond that, what can you say? You can't say anything else, you see. So I think at this stage, that's all he can say. I deny the allegations. It's under legal process, so I'm not at liberty to speak anymore.
How do you see this playing out? What are the next steps we should be looking out for?
I think we should look out next steps to see what does the Justice government do after Trump takes over. Because right now, everything is under slight of a hold until, the change in administration takes place. And after the change in administration, because Trump is appointing very unique people, shall we say, to each of these Justice Department and these enforcement, SEC enforcement and all, whether they will continue to, pursue these cases or not is completely unknown. We don't know enough about the Trump administration to know whether they will continue.
Michael, what's your sense? Will this drag on for some time? How long might this play out for?
Well, I mean, given how serious these allegations are, I mean, this is something that will continue to play out for some time. Can't put a timestamp on it, but I think that there's a process that is going to play out, and I think, as was noted before, it would probably make sense for Adani himself not to say much because there could be more coming. There could be more that gets into the public domain, so to speak, which could make things even worse for Adani, who's already suffered a significant reputational blow. But what I would say here is coming back to the company that was the target of these allegations, Adani Green, which is basically the renewable energy company of the Adani Group. It's a dominant player in what is a fast-growing renewable energy space in India, just because Modi has prioritized accelerating India's energy transition. So I think for all those investors that have been involved in renewable energy in India or want to be, I think they're going to be watching very carefully to see how Adani Green is impacted by this, because if it's impacted in a way that affects its business operations, there could be some pretty big openings there for clean energy investors. So I think that's a critical space to watch too. This very important, rapidly growing renewable energy sector in India. See how that's impacted by the fact that one of the giants of that sector, Adani Green, has been hit with these incredibly damaging allegations.
So,
see, while Adani Group has excellent businesses, as has been mentioned by Michael, there's no doubt they have excellent. In fact, they took over ACC and Ambuja Cement recently. I was on the board of both those companies. So they have excellent businesses to run. But there is a Adani discount that will be placed on the stock of all their companies, because this does have an impact on corporate governance, does have an impact on how many investors, foreign investors, would invest in your company. So there will be an Adani discount, regardless of what happens, which this plus the Hindenburg report will put on all Adani stocks across all its group companies, despite the grand businesses they have, and very well run, by the way. Their businesses are very well run, they're very good businesses, they have very good assets in India, but there will be an Adani discount that will be put on all their companies in the stock market for sure.